Hello YouTube, this is Largo64. A while back I did a video about a young man in Georgia named Troy Anthony Davis who was scheduled to be executed. He has received a stay temporarily, but for how long that will be, it's not known. But he's very likely to be executed for a crime that he didn't commit. There are technical reasons, apparently, why the courts don't want to overturn his conviction or give him a new trial, because certain things were not brought about in a timely way. He wasn't properly represented early on, and so now he's going to suffer the loss of his life. Anyway, this is not so much about Troy in particular as it is about the death penalty in general. There is a man whose name is Dudley Sharp, who was at one time against the death penalty, as I understand it, but he is now one of its most outspoken advocates. And he wrote an article, which I will reference up here so that you'll be able to read it for yourself. I'm going to read clips from it, little bits from it, and try to respond to him. His article is called Innocence Issues, the Death Penalty by Dudley Sharp. Now, he says, Innocence Released from Death Row, a critical review of the claims. He's talking about claims made by the DPIC, that's the Death Penalty Information Center. These are people who are desperately trying to get the death penalty overturned. And he claims that they have inflated their claims and that they're not telling the truth. Let me just read you what he has here. Death penalty opponents claim that since 1973, 102, that's now 132, people in 25, and now it's 26 states, have been released from death row with evidence of their innocence. And he says this is a blatantly false claim. Now, that it's false is Dudley Sharp's opinion, not a fact. Acquittal, he says, which is a not guilty verdict, means that the state was unable to meet the necessary burden of proof in establishing guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It has nothing to do with establishing actual innocence. Now, this is really stunning, Mr. Sharp. Where in our Constitution does it say that any American citizen has to prove his innocence? The state has to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It isn't necessary for anyone accused of a crime to prove his innocence. Now you say death penalty opponents have included supposedly innocent defendants who were still culpable as accomplices to the actual triggerman. The law finds such criminal accomplices legally guilty for their involvement in murders, even if they themselves didn't pull the trigger. For example, does anyone think that bin Laden was innocent of the 9/11 World Trade Center bombings? Now, this argument is specious, Mr. Sharp, and you know it. Bin Laden may not have actually been on one of those airplanes, but he planned and financed the attack. Of course he was culpable. But a driver of a getaway car who finds out after the fact that somebody has been shot and killed to have the same responsibility as if he had planned and carried out the killing himself? That's ridiculous. Now you say a review of the DPIC, that's the Death Penalty Information Center, case descriptions finds that only about 32 claim actual innocence with alleged proof to support the claim. 12 of those 32 are DNA cases. That is 32 cases out of about 7,300 death sentences since 1973. So somehow it's okay with you if 32 people who are innocent get killed because it's only 32? Oh, wait, there's more. I'm reading this at the same time here. You go on July 1st, 2002, in the case of United States versus Quinones, and you give some numbers here of the case. The United States District Court for the Southern District of New York declared that the Federal Death Penalty Act was unconstitutional. The federal court based its decision in part on the DPIC list. The federal court itself analyzed the list and applied undefined conservative criteria to conclude that 40 defendants on the list were released on the grounds indicating factual innocence. However, 23 of the names on Quinones' list are names which Ward Campbell's study submits should be eliminated from the DPIC list. It says Campbell's list, only 17 defendants should be on the list, not the 102 defendants currently listed. So now it's down to only 17. So 17 people, innocent of a crime. It's okay to execute them and make victims of them and their families. Let's not forget their families, Mr. Sharp. Because it's only 17? Your whole article is based on a numbers game. You want to say that it's only a few people that get killed by the state wrongly, and we let so many we prevent so many others from doing harm by killing them. This is the next point that I want to take up. All right, to continue, Mr. Sharp says, death penalty opponents and the media gave much play to a case of Ray Crone. It is an instructive example. He was not on death row at the time he was found innocent via DNA testing. His death sentence was overturned in 1995. He was retried and given a life sentence in 1996. This seems to me to be a very bad example to support your case, Mr. Sharp. Whether the man was on death row or not at the time that he was finally exonerated is not the case, is not important. What is important is that he was tried twice by juries of his peers and twice found guilty when he was, by DNA, factually innocent. Bad example. Okay, now you go on here. You say, in fact, the rule is that the media repeats exactly what anti-death penalty sources tell them without question and passes it along to their audience. This may be one of the worst no fact-checking examples in journalistic history. As previously suggested, possibly in the future, both media and policymakers may inquire, and these are your questions. For how many of these claims is there proof of actual innocence? Were those innocents completely unconnected to the murder? Were they on death row at the time their innocence was proven? Can you provide confirmable, independent support of these claims? And what are the opinions by the district attorneys and the appellate courts for these claims? Those were your questions, Mr. Sharp. My answer is, to all of those questions, I don't know. But assuming that the DPIC was wrong in all cases, I have a question for you. Does taking the life of a convicted felon protect a society from him any better than incarcerating him for life? If your answer is yes, you need to explain how that might be. And if no, then why do you prefer taking life to taking freedom? All right, I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to wrap this up and continue on a second video. Actually, I'm planning on doing a series of videos on this subject, although the second one won't probably be as long as some of the others, because I'm going to take up issues of how people are killed, whether it's cruel and unusual, also taking up the issue of how well or how poorly people are defended in death penalty cases, in particular impoverished people who have to rely on the court to appoint an attorney.